The colors of the world are stretching and tearing apart. Aarav is trapped inside a violent, infinite time loop, and every attempt to escape just snaps him back to the beginning. If you saw this sequence a year ago, you'd assume it took a room full of professional animators, months of rendering, and a massive studio budget to produce. But there is no studio. This entire sequence, the lighting, the motion, the character design, was engineered from scratch by a single person sitting at a laptop, using tools that are entirely free and open to the public. The massive capital and labor requirements that used to guard cinematic animation have been bypassed. Today, anyone with an internet connection can build a complex animated world by following a specific digital workflow. To see exactly how this works, we're going to deconstruct a 15-scene sci-fi epic called The Last Loop, following our protagonist Aarav and his collision with a villain named Dev. This 4-step architecture builds a cinematic universe from zero. It starts with text prompting, moves to image creation, motion conversion, and final timeline assembly. Connecting this pipeline scales a single creator into a fully functional production house. If you type a basic idea like anime boy in a village into an image generator, you get flat, uninspiring digital art. It fails to capture the specific lore and lighting of a real script. The fix is to use a large language model, an AI designed to generate human-like text, to translate basic concepts into highly specific engineering prompts. We feed the story into the LLM, and it outputs a dense string of parameters detailing specific lighting, camera lenses, and artistic style. When we plug that engineered prompt into an image generator, we establish the origin of our story. We get this exact, highly detailed still of 10-year-old Aarav standing in the golden, peaceful sunlight of Sondergram village. We can take that same prompt structure and apply it to the exact opposite environment. Now we have a stark, detailed still of a dark, high-tech lab in Bangalore, centered entirely around a dangerously flickering time machine core. Precise language inputs dictate your visual outputs. Mastering how you speak to the model is the core building block for maintaining visual continuity across your entire world. But static images struggle to hold a modern viewer's attention. To cross the threshold into true animation, we have to introduce physical motion algorithms. We do this through image-to-video conversion tools. These systems analyze a still frame, map the geometry of the scene, and calculate how individual pixels should shift and flow to simulate real physics. For our peaceful village, we apply subtle atmospheric baseline parameters. The tall grass sways gently, and golden dust particles drift slowly through the sunlight. However, the script calls for aggressive time travel mechanics. To pull that off, we have to dial up the motion parameters, instructing the AI to calculate violent, physics-defying distortion effects. This is how we generate the villain Dev's entrance. The motion model renders him floating ominously in midair, calculating the swirling paths of time particles as gravity aggressively distorts around his body. Applying these motion calculations transforms a series of static images into a sequence with the spatial depth and physical momentum of professional animation. The turning point of The Last Loop is a heavy visual climax. Aarav's friend Kabir sacrificing himself by pushing Aarav into the machine core. But watching that happen in total silence lacks emotional weight. This animated loop shows our solution. We feed the context of the visual narrative back into the language model. The LLM reverse engineers the scene to determine the exact musical genre, outputting a precise text prompt for an AI audio generator. We take that synthesized high-stakes soundtrack and layer it beneath the generated footage. Now, when Kabir violently shoves Aarav into the blinding machine core, his tragic resolve actually hits with the intensity the story requires. The generated visual shows the audience the action, but the synthesized audio ensures they actually feel the stakes. At this stage, we have a folder full of isolated images, video clips, and audio tracks. To make them a story, they have to be synchronized inside a central editing timeline. This diagram illustrates a standard nonlinear editing process, a method of editing where you can access and modify any frame of digital video, regardless of sequence. We slice the individual video clips, trim the excess audio, and stack the visual effects. Because our script relies on a massive twist ending, the timeline splinters into multiple overlapping tracks, which all precisely converge into one final cut. The editing bay is where thousands of isolated, mathematically generated pixels are forcefully bound together to create a singular, cohesive reality. The pieces are in place for the final sequence. The machine core hits critical mass, triggering a massive explosion of pure white light that instantly implodes, with the environmental debris visibly rewinding around Aarav. The timeline snaps back. Aarav wakes up abruptly in the golden light of his peaceful village. He looks around frantically, only to find a beautiful, sunlit, but entirely empty landscape. Kabir has been completely erased from existence. As the realization sets in, Dev's voice echoes through the empty village, revealing the brutal truth. Aarav never actually escaped. The loop simply reset. The screen cuts to black, leaving a single line of crisp typography. Some sacrifices don't end. They repeat. That complete, emotionally heavy narrative sequence exists entirely because of the 4-step AI pipeline. Not a single frame was drawn by a traditional animator, and not a single dollar was spent on software or studio time. These generative tools produce stunning visuals, but the technology is rapidly becoming a baseline commodity. The software used to make the last loop is sitting freely available on millions of computers right now. This animated scale illustrates a vital point. The AI motion algorithms do not drive millions of views on their own. The true weight of a viral hit comes from the human-crafted narrative and meticulously detailed world-building that the creator instructs the AI to execute. You can take this exact 4-step architecture, prompting, image generation, motion conversion, and timeline assembly, and begin architecting your own digital worlds today. When the barrier to entry is no longer the cost of a studio or the years spent mastering a physical brush, the success of a project depends entirely on the creator's ability to command these technical tools with a clear narrative intent.